Hello friends, welcome to my channel. I'm Laura Barat from laurabaratastrologer.com, and today I'm discussing Mercury retrograde through the horoscope. I wanted to do a video about this because Mercury's retrograde right now and will be for a couple more days. And there's so many videos about Mercury retrograde, and but I haven't seen any so far that talk about Mercury retrograde in your particular horoscope, going through a particular house, because Mercury, Venus, and Mars become prominent and become important when they retrograde through a house. And all three of those planets, well, all of the planets actually, but those are the most important ones that when they go retrograde. But so every planet is a karaka of a house, or has a particular house that it has an affinity with, and gives some special results when it goes through a house. Now, all the planets give effects when they go through the 12th house, when they go through the first house, and when they go through the 11th house from their critical house. Okay, and when they transit through the 11th house from their critical house, that's called a reward transit. Okay. So today I'm talking about Mercury specifically because it becomes powerful when it's retrograde. They actually call, retrograde planets have Shakti or power because they're so close to the earth. With Mercury, it's between the earth and the sun when he goes retrograde. And they are just more powerful planets being closer to the sun. It's a little different than Western astrology, where they say that retrograde planets give a lot of problems with the indications of those planets, but not in this system. Okay. So, Mercury gives effects when he transits through your first house, your fourth house. The fourth house is a very powerful house for Mercury to transit through. And then the second house, because the second house is the 11th from the fourth. Okay. Mercury has an affinity for the fourth house because he's the fourth planet. And he becomes a special karaka for the fourth Varga, or the Chaturtamsha, or if you're a Western astrologer, the fourth harmonic. But we calculate the fourth harmonic a lot differently in Vedic astrology. And I'm going to do a video about that next, about the Chaturtamsha. But, just to be more general, when Mercury transits through your fourth house, it causes a lot of travel in vehicles. It also causes a lot of new opportunities to arise. The fourth house has to do with fortune, bhagya. Okay. Meaning you get your fair share, you get your portion. And it's specifically about fortune. It's different than the second house in that they say the second house rules wealth. It actually rules the means to do something. You have the means to take care of your responsibilities, and you have everything you need to do that in a productive, healthy way. That's the second house. The fourth house rules land and real estate, which happens to be one of the best things you can own, because you can actually do things with land and real estate. And, feed yourself, or build other buildings for other people to live on, or grow food for a bunch of other people. The land is considered to be the highest fortune right now, or it was. Okay. And in my opinion, it still is, but some people may differ with that. But it was considered to be something that was highly fortunate if you were a landowner. Okay. And so the fourth house represents going above and beyond just having the means to survive. And Mercury rules. Mercury is the planet of opportunities. Mercury rules the earth element, so he is a very strong planet of manifestation. Okay? It says in Brihat Parashara It says fire, earth, ether, water, and air in that order, O twice born, from Mars and the other grahas in their order are the tattvas. So the second one was Earth, and that's the second planet, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn, the 5 planets that rule the 5 elements. And then in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it says about the earth manifesting, standing, holding, desiccating the real, and differentiating all good qualities are the characteristics of earth. So manifesting becomes a supreme indication of Mercury. And in the Pancha Mahapurusha yogas, if you have that one of those yogas with Mercury, which is the Buddha yoga, I believe. So it's the Bhadra yoga of Mercury that is the Pancha Mahapurusha, and that's considered to be the yoga that gives the most worldly success out of those 5 Pancha Mahapurusha yogas, because it's Mercury, it's earth, it's the earth element, it's manifesting on creation. You can manifest your desires and your inspirations in the material world. So when Mercury transits that 4th house, especially if he's retrograde, okay, this is mainly if they're retrograde, you're going to feel it a little bit if he's not retrograde, but if he's retrograde, it really will manifest because it just becomes more powerful. And every year they go through, Mercury and Venus go through a house every year. But if it's retrograde, it's even more powerful. Okay. So then that's a time of great opportunity to manifest some great opportunities, to invest in your home or your house or any type of land. It's also going to make travel for beneficial means or travel for, to take advantage of opportunities, travel for business, travel for networking and that part of the business venture, casting your net out and, pulling in the people you need and the resources you need. So Mercury retrograde through the 4th house is pretty important. So you should always pay attention to when that will happen in your chart, because that is a time that you can start manifesting fortune or thinking about how you're going to create your fortune, okay, and manage it. Mercury is the big manager as well. Okay. And so, so Mercury through the 4th is pretty important. Mercury through the 2nd, is important because that's the 11th from the 4th. That's what they call a reward transit. The 11th house is a house of gains, a house of gaining something after a lot of effort put forth. So, when Mercury goes through the 2nd, we usually get our reward from all of those opportunities that came up when Mercury traveled through the 4th. Okay? Or we just get those gains from what we have been doing, all the efforts we had been making up until that point that Mercury goes through the 2nd, especially when he's retrograde. Okay? Wanted just to see, so another thing that's really good to do when Mercury transits through the 2nd house and he's retrograde is, it gives a lot of managerial capacity. It is currency, investing in currency or, any types of currencies, even the new cryptocurrencies. And it's a good time for shares, buying shares or collecting on shares. Actually, buying shares is good when Mercury retrogrades through the 4th, but you should get the reward from those shares when he's retrograding or passing through the 2nd. Okay. And then, making long-term investments is also a good thing to do when Mercury is retrograde through the 2nd house. Okay. Now, another important house that Mercury going through in retrograde is the first. Any planet going through the first is going to be important. But if Mercury is retrograding through the first house, this is when you really try to improve upon your skills. It's a highly skillful planet. Mercury is the planet of skills. He's also the planet of relatives, okay? When like cousins and aunts and uncles, that is represented by Mercury, and they may come more prominently into your life when he's transiting the first. You're improving upon your skills. You're developing speech techniques, whether just improving your speech or communication in general, or you want to make a presentation. What I'm doing right now is kind of Mercury. It's a combination of Venus and Mercury, because I'm talking to you all and I'm on camera, and it's kind of an entertainment type of thing. So that's kind of prominent as well. And then, and Mercury will also bring your relatives into your life a little more prominently than they usually are when he's transiting the first. Another important planet or house that Mercury will transit, and this is true for any house, okay, or any planet, is the 12th. Planets transiting through the 12th house actually become important. Why is that? Most people associate the 12th house with loss, and it is. It is a house of loss, but it's also a house of gaining something as your last desire, because you gain something as your last desire, and then you can let it go. Okay? The 12th house is a house of liberation. And so, you know, a lot of people have one last desire, and especially the yogis. This is a very prominent story about some yogis. They had this one last desire, so they had to incarnate and get that one last desire, and then they passed on from the earth plane and never had to return. So if you have a good 12th house, then usually you can get your last desire, and then you can just let it go, okay? That's why planets transiting the 12th is so kind of a powerful transit, believe it or not. Now, when Mercury transits that house, there's business, there's networking with friends, and you either get those things that you had been hoping for, or or you finally realize their value, okay? Or you realize that you have to spend too much money or spend too much time and energy on those things, and you realize it's not worth it. Okay, it can go either way. Usually, if Mercury is good in your chart, or if the 12th house is a good house, or it has a good lord, you get those things you've long desired, and then you can kind of let go of that desire. Or if Mercury's not so good and the 12th house is not so good, you finally realize, I'm spending too much time and energy on this, and spending too much money even. It's time to let this go. I really don't need this anymore. Okay? And that is true of all of the planets really transiting through the 12th. And so then, now going through the other houses, Mercury has an affinity for the third as well, because the third is the house of travel. It's also the house of artistic ability and craftsmanship. So those also become very prominent in your life. And when Mercury goes through the third, especially if he's retrograde, okay? Already covered the fourth, going through the fifth. Mantras and creative ideas involving arts and performing arts, making a plan for those things, training for those things, games and hobbies with children, or your children get more involved in games and hobbies, or artistic expression. That's Mercury through the 5th. Mercury going through the 6th is laws and dealing with lawyers, because the 6th house is lawyers and laws. And Mercury also rules worldly law or laws made by governments. Okay. And there can also be arguments or struggles or disagreements with friends. Mercury is the planet of friends, and the 6th is our enemy. So there can be some issues around your friends, basically. And Mercury going through the 7th. Okay, this is great for business and business partners. Not as great as the 4th or the 1st, but it's still pretty powerful. Mercury is a planet of business and business partners going through the 7th, a house of business, okay? Especially when retrograde. Mercury going through the 8th, corporations, okay? The 8th house rules corporations. Getting grants from the government for artistic endeavors, okay? An art grant or something of that nature. Getting money from the government to train at something. That's also Mercury going through the 8th. Spiritual discernment, okay? Mercury going through the 8th. Mercury going through the 9th. Well, the 9th house just basically gives an easiness, a luck with mercurial things, relatives, laws, friends. You become more friendly with your spiritual advisor or your mentor. You become more friendly or become friends with your professors or your teachers in some way. That's Mercury through the 9th. It's not that important because he doesn't rule that much of the 9th house, or doesn't rule that many things that is associated with the 9th house. But if he's going retrograde through the 9th, you can see a more friendly attitude around your spiritual mentors and teachers, or your friends become that way. They become more interested in religion and philosophy, and it makes a pronounced dent or impression on your friendship. Okay. So Mercury going through the 10th, that also is, you have to take care of details when Mercury goes through the 10th in your career. You may have some friends that come to prominence, or your friends increase in their power and influence. Okay, especially retrograde. Mercury going through the 11th. This is where you become very social. And Mercury is a social planet. And then he's in the house of social circles, networks, peers, and colleagues. Okay, so hobnobbing, networking with people, opportunities from your network, opportunities from your social circle and colleagues is very pronounced when Mercury goes through that 11th house, okay? And also your friends could receive some kind of award or recognition for all of the hard work they've put in. So that's how that works with Mercury. And Mercury going through the 12th, as I said again, that is really important to have that one last desire of getting Mercury things. You can reevaluate your friendships, see what kind of friendships you want in your life and what kind you don't want. Another thing with Mercury through the 12th, and this is extremely, kind of a powerful thing, okay? When Mercury goes through the 12th and it's retrograde, you can have some really strong insights with dreams. And you can actually be in that state between being asleep and awake, and have some really powerful insights, and understand what it is that you need to keep in your life and what you need to let go of. Because Mercury, again, is differentiation and desiccating the real. It's a planet of categorization. categorization and discrimination. Okay, so it's a planet of understanding what's going to be beneficial to you and what isn't. But you do that in a state where you really have to be aware of it upon waking, because it'll get away from you. And it's really important. You might forget it because you're in a very theta brainwave state. And so you really get some strong insights into deep insights into reality. And so it's a pretty powerful transit. You really need to pay attention to your dreams when you've got Mercury going through the 12th. So yeah, this is kind of fun to do, because Mercury retrograde is such a common thing, but it really means a lot when it is associated with one of your houses in your horoscope. Okay, so thank you for watching, and that's all for today about Mercury retrograde through your horoscope. Thanks again. Bye.